right? So in the beginning, we just got to learn the basic ones. And then, you know, then you'll start to loosen up and start getting really random. And that's why I made up this little down, down, up, down, down, up. You guys think I'm crazy, but, you know, it's all the things that I had to learn way back in the day through the nail industry that I've never seen anybody in Donna's group do it. But, you know, these are the little things that were my aha moments, right? To get a couple wiggles, maybe smaller, maybe a little bit wider, a little bit smaller, a little bit wider, right? You might need a little bit of floating medium on this dry paper. Right, so I can make up all these random dances all day long, you know, really, right? Like instead of going down, down, up, I'm going small, big, like, you know, really trying to random your shapes and sizes. And you see how I start to get dry? I stop, I back up, go reload my brush, and then I feather in. This is really important for those rolling leaves, is to be comfortable with rolling back in to where you left off. And then carry on again with whatever random dance you're looking for. Okay, so the more you can play around with the randomness, right? Especially sometimes we only need that tiniest amount of medium on the color that's doing most of the work. Okay, so take a look at your brush. Definitely it takes a couple times. I find like once you do a couple strokes, then it gets better and better with every stroke. You almost fight with that first stroke just because your brush isn't totally loaded. And maybe I could go a little tiny bit higher with that brush. But if I'm only pressing a quarter of the way down, then that's all I need in my brushes to have like more than a quarter of paint. When you're pressing halfway down, more pressure, right? Then you want to make sure that your paint is higher than the area that you're pressing in. So if I'm doing that real strong pressure, right, I want to really push, get that nice moisture paint up a little higher. So now when I push, the paint is actually loaded more than what I'm actually pushing. Right? So when we're doing all these little daisy strokes, we're just using the chisel. The more we push down to make our daisy bigger, then the paint needs to come from the deeper areas. Right? So this is where I'm finding you guys not loading your paint enough. And then maybe we'll push, you know, 1 or 2 times really good. And then we're doing a bunch of flowers. And then gradually we forget to push so hard. And now we're only loading the last quarter of our brush. We've got this dry area that's a little thicker now. And you're trying to do that pressure, but deep inside is still old paint. Right? So you guys got to try to be a little bit more consistent on how you're loading your brush, right? Really push when you want to have that pressure, right? Especially when you're pushing hard to get a little bit more of a smoother look, right? When you're doing this kind of look, I'm only pressing a quarter of the way down because I'm almost drawing on with my brush. And I'm taking smaller wiggles. You're going to get definitely a lot more individual little streaks, as opposed to pushing and scrubbing the floor, right? So when you're really pushing, you know, that's when it's really nice to get those really fast wiggles. And then you can get really tiny little lines in there. And still like a smooth look, but still have movement in your petal. Okay, breaking down these wiggles some more for you guys. Going to give you lots of food for thought, because this is what happens too. So we're pushing too hard and we're trying to back flip. Well, you got to go from extreme laying down to standing up. You know how hard that is in the morning for us ladies that are over 40, right? So definitely when we're sitting, it's easier to stand than when we're lying down. right? So definitely you don't have to push so hard, right? So down, down, up, down, down, up, right? Carry on from where I was, down, down, up, right? So I'm not pressing as hard, right? It's all about different pressures. Right? So then when you start to get that control, again, you can press a little bit, right? But definitely you want to be up a little bit higher on your brush. And then when you get bigger, right, bigger and wider, you'll have room to get up on that chisel and press on it to go backwards. Then you're going to come forward right in front of it and then start your randomness again, right? Depending on you're doing a petal, a leaf, doesn't matter what you're doing. Right? Again, a little bit dry. Need more paint. I'll always try more paint before I add medium. Because if you add more medium than you want, right? Really do it dramatic right now. Right? Really try to get it bigger. And then the more you do it and practice, the more you'll be able to tighten up on that back flip and have it a little bit tighter. Right? So it's always easier to practice bigger and then slowly tighten yourself up, right? That's large. You got to find some medium ones in there in the middle and then try to get as tiny as you can. Right? So you see my gradient here, right? How high it is? That's the reason why this shows up. Right? If you don't have that gradient high enough, even half and half, right? When you're trying to do, well, I still have lots of paint in my brush. Right? You've got to have it high enough for this white color to come up and nice and bright on the edge too. If it's too dirty white, you're not going to see that definition as much. Right? So it's always easier to do this definitely with the light colors on top. Trying to reverse it with your leaves definitely is a little bit harder, right? You really got to side load a little bit more maybe, or really get lots of light color in that brush and just have that tiny little bit of dark.